It was a rough day for Ryan Day on Wednesday. It was signing day, and we should have been talking about all the new recruits that they got, and we did. But the way things were set up, I'm Steven, that's Stefan, that's Andrew. It was a lot of let's do recruiting questions first, and then we can hammer him home with what everybody actually wants to be hammered home about. And in various different ways, he got asked about his time here, whether he thinks his job is on the line. Has he thought about leaving on his own accord because maybe this is too much? He said, yes, I expect to be here next year. No, I have never thought about leaving on my own accord. He knows that Ross Bjork, who put out a statement on Sunday, has full confidence in him. I don't know, Stefan. I don't think any of us think he's coaching for his job in terms of win a national championship or you're out of here, but there is a level of pressure that's going into the next month and giving the fan base, because the administration might not be out on it of his players, as he mentioned. The culture is strong, but it does seem like the fan base is ready to move on. Is there anything he can do over the next 45 days here to change that?
Starts with winning a national championship. That definitely helps change that, right? And
do the hardest thing possible. Start there.
I think one thing that's going to be really important is it looks like they're going to have a home game. You cannot lose at home. You cannot go out losing at home against Michigan and then in a playoff game. That's number one step in winning over the fan bases. Let the last note of Ohio Stadium this year be celebratory. Not just for Ryan Day and for the fan base, but there's a lot of seniors who have put a lot into this program. They went 0-4 against Michigan. Some of them went 0-5 against Michigan. And the scene after the game, it was just ugly. It's probably not the way you want to go out as a senior. So, number one, for these seniors, they get a chance. But it does help Ryan Day's case if the last scene at Ohio State can be a good one in a playoff win. And then you got to make some hay in the playoff. I mean, nothing I'm saying is revolutionary here. It's every year you have 3 goals. And across the last 4 years, you have not reached any of those goals. You're 0 for 11 right now, and number 12 is going to win a national championship. It's hard. Those are not goals set by the fan base. Those are goals set by Ryan Day. He sits down every year. He does podcasts over the offseason, press conferences over the offseason, press conferences during the season, and he says the 3 goals: beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, win a national championship. You haven't reached any of those goals since 2020. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough to win over this fan base. A deep playoff run is really the only way I could see Ohio State having any momentum. And even then, we talked about, like, okay, just make the national championship game. Just make it to the national semifinal. If you lose a semifinal game against, Oregon or something like that, it's not like there's going to be a lot of people going into this offseason that are thrilled, because you're still ending on a losing note, and that's really hard to bounce back from. Think about the way that we've talked about this Michigan game. There's another game coming up, but you're still talking about the loss. You're still talking about the loss. You don't want to go into another offseason where the last game you played is a loss. So it's very imperative to win a national championship, because outside of that, sure, getting to the title game might be viewed as a win by the team, by the administration, but for fans, going out on the offseason on a loss is not going to win over a lot of people, regardless of how far you made it.
Do you think he can win back the fan base in the next 45 days?
I think he can win back some of them. You said 45 days. I think, and to go back to something you said earlier, I think he absolutely is coaching for his job on that game at home, assuming it is at home on December 21st. I think if Ohio State loses that game, I'm not saying they will be, but I think they should be done here. I think that would probably be it. If you don't win a home game, especially depending on the opponent, I think that should be the end of it. But if you win that game, maybe it's against an Alabama, maybe it's against a Georgia, maybe it's against a truly, talented opponent. I know obviously Alabama's had some problems this year. Georgia would have a third loss. Like, they'd have some problems. But if you can beat a team like that, win a quarterfinal game, you get to the semifinal or even the national championship game, and you run into Oregon, and you lose to Oregon close again, I'm sure there will be people who will be, same old, this is not working. I'm out on Ryan Day still. It doesn't matter. He hasn't beaten Michigan. But if you can get to that level, I wonder how many people are going to say, you know what? Oregon was just the best team in college football this year, and we lost to them in a national championship game. We were the 6th seed. We won 3 games. We lost to them in a national championship game by a field goal. Yes, it's a problem that we keep losing these games, but the team is still talented, and we might be going somewhere next year. I think that is a possibility, but it is a big 45 days, and I think it is one of those situations where December 21st, I think everything might be on the line for Day and for this program. And then depending on who your opponent is, because if you beat Alabama at home and you have a second-round matchup against, like, Boise State or SMU or something, and that doesn't go your way and you lose that game, I mean, I wonder how many people in this fan base are going to say, yeah, well, we beat Alabama. I think that is where people are going to get really negative again. So the 45 days thing is big, but I think it depends on how you get there.
You don't really think they could lose to SMU or Boise State?
No, I do not, but that's my point. I think anything would kind of be erased if that happens. I do not think they're losing to Boise State. Do not think they're losing to SMU. But I think we have to say it for the record just to put it out there as a possibility.
I don't think we have to, but I understand where you're coming from. Again,
SMU and Boise are probably better than Michigan this year.
And they also
wear winged helmets? Did they wear? Because if they don't wear winged helmets, Ohio State might be fine.
like those twos go have a mental hold on this program right now. I don't think it's enough. There is a maybe. I don't know if there's actually a threshold for you need to win this many games in the playoff or you're going to be fired. I don't know if Ross Bjork is thinking like that because, again, he's been here for 6 months. So we're not talking about an established athletic director. He's been here for 6 months, and he's already had to make a hire at the other revenue-building job. So it's like I don't know if you want to be doing that 6 months in on the job where you've got a new athletic director and you've got a president who's been here for a year. Like that's just not – there's the technical stuff you have to think about with some of this. It's just not as simple as let me fire this coach. But in terms of the fan base, I do think he has to win a national championship to start winning back the fan base. But I'm serious.
I know. It's just funny to say out loud.
I'm going to tell you why. Every year, regardless of how the year ends, it's got to be a hope built in to go into the offseason. So let's look at Ryan Day's tenure here. 2019, when they lost to Clemson, the hope was if we got on that field with Clemson again, we would win that game. We feel robbed by that game, the way things played out with Sean Wade being ejected, with the Jeff Okudah forced fumble turned touchdown being overturned and being called an incompletion. There was reason to lock back in as a fan base. For real, not just lock back in because there's a football game going on. There was something that carried them through the offseason. In 2020, you got to the national championship game, and you just kind of chalk it up to it's a weird COVID year, but this era maximized itself. In 2021, you lost to Michigan. But also, that was a really young team. Look at what CJ and Jackson just did in the Rose Bowl. Oh, my, we're going to be awesome. Look at Marvin Harrison Jr. Look at Emeka Egbuka. Whoa, the defense is going to get better as they get older. Then you lost again in 2022. But then the Georgia game, you got new life, and you got to breathe that into thing. Yes, you were losing C.J. Stroud. Yes, you were losing Jackson Smith-Njigba, but you had a 5-star following him up. Marvin Harrison Jr. was still wearing scarlet and gray, and so was Emeka Egbuka. And again, the core of your team was going into 2023. So now it's super team mode. Let's get it. 2023, you lose to Michigan again. No hope. The Cotton Bowl happens. No hope. But then it's reload the clip. All these guys come back. Again, there's hope for all of that to get better this year. You lost to Michigan this year. These guys, there is no reload the clip. These guys are gone. It's a wrap. And maybe there's some part of the fan base who's ready for these guys to be gone. This team is going to look drastically different when the spring game happens. Whether it's the offensive line, whether it's who's at quarterback, the only thing that's going to be the same is Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are going to be your starting wide receivers. There's a lot of other things that are going to be different. So it's a reset, essentially. And so the hope is, maybe things will be different this time. But if you're already set on this idea of maybe things aren't going to be different, what can get you through 9 months until the Texas game? A trophy. Putting the proper punctuation on this ugly 4-year stretch, ending it with a trophy just makes it a cool story. But you got to give this fan base some hope about some things. They don't have to think logically. They can think fully off emotion. And so I do think that there is a growing need of, if you don't win a national championship, maybe then I'm not coming back. And that doesn't mean you're out on Ohio State. It just means now you're in a mode of like, okay, well, he's our coach, and I'll believe it when I see it mode, because the hope is kind of gone right now. Now, let's see what happens in 20 days when they play a college football playoff game. We'll continue to talk about this on Buckeye Talk, so go listen to that wherever you find podcasts. Stefan, Stephen, Andrew, get the text 614-350-3315. 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Ohio State locked into the playoff. We'll find out on Sunday who's going to be coming to Columbus to play them.